Alright guys, so in this video I wanted to go over why people have their hips shoot up on a deadlift and their chest fall forward off the floor as opposed to having their hips and their chest move upwards off the same time. They're initiating the deadlift. That's what we want to see. Obviously, we don't want to see our chest falling forward, hips rising. It's going to shift a lot of the weight onto our posterior chain. We're not really going to be able to use our back with our legs as best as possible. We want to usually see the hips rising with the upper body. This is really going to be improper use of generating force off the floor on a deadlift when you are wedging into position. So what I mean by this is that a lot of people make the mistake of trying to lean back a little bit too much or applying horizontal force when we need to really be trying to apply as much vertical force about the bar as possible. So I think this set right here I did today on my deadlifts is a really good example of doing this right really early on and then not doing it well. I do a pretty good job of this reps 1 through 3. You can see how I am applying a lot of vertical force. Hips are rising with my chest. Really good overall positioning here. But then you can see here I get a little bit lazy and I stop really driving upwards as much, and I was thinking more about leaning back and loading my hips. And you can see the bar starts getting away from me, my hips start rising, my chest starts falling forward, and you can see that the reps get a lot more effortful and it's just not as efficient. I fixed it a little bit on the last rep, but still there's room to be done there. Also, you can see this with my client Ethan. You can see that off the floor here, there's a little bit of a lag time, and he kicks the bar away from his shins. A lot of times that's just because we're not applying vertical force about the bar, and that's really making him have inefficient pulling, and it's not as snappy as it could be. So what I'm thinking about when I'm trying to get into position on a deadlift is I want to try to do two things. I want to make sure that when I'm getting into position here, I'm trying to lengthen my arms, keep my upper body relaxed. I'm not pulling up on the bar at all here with my upper body. I'm just trying to drive my torso up as high as possible, keeping my arms relaxed. I want to ideally feel some tension right here in my traps and my upper back. And once I feel myself in that high position and I feel good, you can also see like right there. That's usually going to set my hips in a really good spot. I'm going to think about pushing slack out of the bar while trying to drive up, not trying to drive back. This is going to be something where, usually off the floor as far as foot pressure goes, you're going to need to have a little bit more big toe pressure off the floor, and then as soon as the bar gets moving, shift it a little bit more back on your heels as you're driving upward with your torso. That is really letting myself get in a really good position, and I want to really fight for that position. I don't want to be lazy and just think about pulling with my back instead of leg pressing off the floor. Because if I think about pulling, that is going to cause more horizontal force as opposed to vertical force. It all comes down to how are we using our legs off the floor. Because if we're not using our legs and we are trying to essentially use more of our back and not our legs, then we're going to notice that we're going to start having some weird shifting of center of mass. Notice that the bar gets away from us, our back starts taking more load, our deadlift is less efficient, and it just is a lot more overall fatiguing. Like you see right there again, not as much pushing off the floor. You can also see like right there, like instead of my knees staying forward, they go back a lot. As you can see right on this rep right here, let's go right back there. My knees are staying a lot more forward and not going back as much as they are on this rep. That's something that we don't want to see have happen. One other thing is that a lot of lifters I will see, they tend to pull up on the bar when they're getting into position. You can see right here, my client Antonio has a bad habit of pulling up on the bar with his arms. What this does, essentially, it lowers down the distance that you can actually have between your torso and the bar, and it's going to usually result in more backgrounding and a lower ability to actually like load your legs and push it, because you're basically just telling your body like you have to pull from that spot because there's so much tension in your lower back, right like that. So you can see right there, he's tugging up on the bar, and he has already started tugging on that as he is getting into position. You can see how his torso position is not really as high as it could possibly be, and you can see how it's just not really as much vertical force as we're seeing here, not really as snappy, especially with how light of a weight that this is for him. It looks a lot more effortful than it should because he's pulling up on the bar. So don't pull up on the bar. Keep those arms nice and relaxed and long. All of that pressure should be with your legs. You can see right here again, this is a little bit lighter weights. I'm driving upwards the entire time. Keep my arms nice, long, and relaxed. And you can see that my hips end up in the right spot as a result of that. If you do this properly, you don't really need to worry about your hip height. It's usually going to end up in the right spot. And your deadlift is going to overall just end up being a lot more efficient. You have a lot less overall back fatigue. So if you're noticing that you're not doing this properly, some programming strategies I will like to usually incorporate. Number one, choosing an average intensity that allows you to reinforce this technique. So usually deadlift usually responds better to lighter intensities. Lots of times we're talking about like percentages, anywhere between 50 to 70% of your max, and accumulating volume there. And then usually we're going to, maybe as far as an accessory or a variation goes, to reinforce technique. I'm a really big fan of deadlifts for conventional pullers, as well as 3 count eccentric deadlifts for conventional and sumo pullers. I don't like paused deadlifts for a lot of people because a lot of times people have a tendency to lean back too much and scoop their hips. And I'm trying to teach them, how to apply vertical tension off the floor with a wedge. That's not the most efficient thing to do. So I'm going to include some notes down in the description below, just to reiterate what I said here. But I'd really go try this. This can make a huge difference with how your deadlift feels, especially at higher weights. Deadlift is completely dependent upon your positioning off the floor and how you ramp tension. So be patient off the floor too with how you're going into position. You can see like generally you want to push off the floor here. I am not really trying to accelerate. I'm just basically trying to feel tension here, feel that slack get pushed out of the bar, feel my traps taking more of that load, and as soon as I feel that kind of go, then I start producing more and more force. That's what wedging is. Essentially, it's just trying to get you in a better spot where you have to produce less force and you can lift more weight. That's what a wedge does in actuality. So hopefully that makes sense. If you guys are having any questions, ask down in the comments below. If you guys need help with your technique, I do this with all my clients with personalized form reviews just like this. So if you guys are interested in that, links are down below to apply for coaching.